Brad Oaster is the founder of Oaster, a consultation service that has been instrumental in the growth of America's fastest growing churches for over 30 years. Brad and his wife Kim have a heart to equip ministers to reach their communities through their God-given vision. He is more than just words on paper to Marsha and I. He was a tool in the hand of the Lord in my life at about age 50. My life was rearranged because of just a chance meeting with this man, and with his consulting, with his genuine love, and this skeptic of people that's their job, is to help you be a better person, help you do church better, or this. I am a skeptic. I got this on lock. I know what I'm doing and how to do this. God told me. But somehow that year, the Lord pulled a fast one on me, because I told him God changed me this year, and he brought this man in here, and he helped pull up the depths of my heart just through his gifting, his skill. And I learned very quickly that this man is of like heart and like passion. He is a trustworthy man. He's a spirit-filled man of God, a warrior in Christ. He and his wife are more powerful than I believe they even realize. And I am honored to present to you this man. He's not just a consultant, not just a speaker, but he's a very dear and a precious friend of mine, a personal friend. And I'd like to share him with you this morning. I would like you to stand to your feet and make welcome Brad Oaster as he shares the word this morning. I love you, man, buddy.
And he's tall. Is this mic, just the lapel mic's on, so I'm saying you're upset. Great. Hey, if I can get my laptop up here, that'd be great. I promised that I would help Scott out with his joke about the interrupting cow last night. So, and I can see by the clocks over here, I'm already kind of running quick here. So are you ready for this? Ready for this? Huh?
Yeah.
Two men walk into a bar. Third one ducks.
That's good. I get it. I see what you did. That was good.
All right. You got, okay. I'll try another one. Baptist moves into a Catholic neighborhood, and he's driving the Catholics nuts, because the Catholics don't eat meat on Friday. They cook fish. And so every Friday he'd fire up his barbecue. Oh, you need a password on there? Mm-hmm. Okay, hang on. Commercial. You got that? Right? He's firing up his barbecue. And the third one ducks. No, I'm just kidding. So he fires up the barbecue, and all the Catholics are upset because they're outside and they eat fish, but they can smell steak and ribs everywhere. It's just driving them nuts. So the Catholics all get together and say, we got to convert this guy to Catholicism, because this just isn't right. So they tried to convert this guy to Catholicism, but he's diehard Baptist. Wouldn't happen. So after several years, the guy finally says, look, if you'll just leave me alone, I'll become a Baptist. And they're all going, yes. So they get the priest to come out, and the priest goes up to the guy and he goes, you once were a Baptist, you are now a Catholic. Sprinkle, sprinkle, sprinkle. They think, great, don't have to smell barbecue anymore on Friday. Right? The next week, they go out in their backyard, and they can smell barbecue everywhere. The guy's got steaks going and everything. So they go up to him and go, look, what didn't you get? You're Catholic. You eat fish on Friday. But the guy's standing over his barbecue, and he's got his big baster there, and he goes, you once were a steak. You are now a fish. Scott, you retell it, you owe me a quarter. Every time. Every time, yeah. Okay, so my name's Brad Oaster. I grew up in California and started doing church construction in 1980. I've been at it now for 37 years. I started when I was 10, obviously. The first thing I did is I worked as a contractor, and so I was just building churches. Churches would go get a design, and they'd ask me to come and build it, and so I'd build it for them. About 1988, I hired my first architect because I was throwing literally $1 million worth of drawings in the trash every year. People think their building's going to cost $3 million. The lowest bid's $5 million. They didn't know what to do, so we'd have to throw everything away and start over. So I hired a guy named Pat Morgan, and we started a design-build firm. That was great. We took off. The company grew really faster than I could manage. By 1992, we were the largest design-build firm on the West Coast. We had 8 full-time architects, and just moving into CAD operations, we were still drawing by hand prior to that. We had 4 offices up and down the West Coast, and we were doing about 30, 35 churches a year. Kim and I went to Argentina in 1991, and we saw God do some unbelievable stuff just right in front of our eyes. We went with Ed Silvosa with Harvest Evangelism. And so I accepted Christ when I was 9 years old, but I became a sold-out, bona fide believer in Argentina in 1991 when God did things that were just undeniable, in-your-face, God-sized miracles that were... I came back from Argentina with this God stuff is real. I'm going up to the pastor of our church. Peter, yes, Brad, this God stuff, yeah, it's real. And he'd pat me on the back. We know that, Brad. No, you don't. No, you don't. It's real, you know. And so on the way home from Argentina, Kim and I were looking at what we do, you know, with building churches and everything. And I thought we should do all right. I mean, we want to give our lives to God in such a way that we take full advantage of His gifting and wanting to use us, right? And so I'm thinking, all right, so when we check out, we'll have maybe, 500 churches we've built. I mean, that ought to count for something. I mean, we're not Mother Teresa and Billy Graham, but I mean, it's better than building Taco Bell, maybe. I don't know. But then we started looking at the churches that we do and found out that most of the churches, literally most, because we made a list of the 30 projects on the way home from Argentina, our current workload, and 27 were churches that really, in my opinion, don't add any value to the kingdom. Okay, not that I judge them or anything, but they're country club churches. They're more concerned about their stained glass window than they are lost people going to hell. And we did a lot of those. Well, 27 out of 30, that's like 90%. Kim and I were so frustrated with that, we decided we are not going to do any more country club churches. We're done. We went back to the office and announced this to everybody, and they basically telling me I need to see a psychiatrist. I drank the water in Argentina and went nuts or something. But we were committed to, they wanted to have me committed. We were committed to, we're not doing any more country club churches. If they're not desperately seeking the lost in their community, we don't want to work with them. I had to close my company because we made all of our money on country club churches. And we gave it back to people like Dick and Carla Burnell, to Chip Ingram over at Santa Cruz Bible Church, wants to make it impossible to get to hell from Santa Cruz. Anybody been to Santa Cruz? That's the goal. No. So we scaled everything down, started just working with churches that, back then we didn't have phrases like seeker-friendly or purpose-driven or sticky church or any of that kind of thing. We just called them a hospital for sinners, church for the unchurched. But we had to retool absolutely everything. Then we started looking at business plans because I had done a business plan for my company before I went to Argentina because we had the whole West Coast covered. We were going to go to Albuquerque and Phoenix and that area and keep growing the company. So I had some help from a friend of mine on building a business plan for my company. Of course, when I got back from Argentina, I scrapped it and redid the whole. But the business plan was extremely detailed, and I remember thinking, man, what if a church put as much effort into their ministry plan as we just put into our business plan? Couldn't they really make it impossible to get to hell from their community? So we started working with churches again, and before we would do any kind of building plans, in fact, this is our old sign here. Let me see if I can pull that up. Uh-oh, did I hit the wrong button? There we go, let's scroll over here. There you go. That was actually my logo back then. We didn't build churches like that very often anymore, but working together with Christian churches to design, build, finance, and pay for functional, affordable facilities that will enhance ministry and lead to kingdom growth. And yeah, it is. You want to hear it again? No, I'm just kidding. But we restructured everything, and I thought, I want to work with churches not in such a way that we make money on architecture, which we have to do to stay in business. We have to make money on construction because we'd like to be around next year. But our goal is not to see your ministry just get by, but to really see it thrive. That if we help with a facility, I want you to blow the doors off that thing in 2 years. Not so that I can just come back and build another one, but so that I can really be a valuable asset. And the thing that was interesting is as I started working more with Jubilee and the kind of churches that we wanted to work with, other churches started asking me questions. Well, what are they doing over there? What are they doing at Pantego Bible Church when we worked with Randy Frazier, when we worked with Chip Ingram at Santa Cruz? And I ended up being more of a consultant to people. We're still designing and building stuff, but boy, they're trying to figure out how do we do this and how do we do this and how do we do this? So when we started doing the strategic plans, everything changed. I mean, all of a sudden, churches that thought, we need to add on are looking at that and go, no, if this plan's anywhere near close, adding on would be a waste because we'll outgrow our property. So we need to start looking at new land over here, new land over there. And today the churches that we work with are some of the fastest, Scott said, some of the fastest growing churches in America. In fact, I'm going to figure these buttons out here pretty soon. Let's see. Boy, how's that? Okay, just that button. This is a list that Outreach Magazine puts out. They put it out every year of the fastest growing churches in America. And of the top 10 fastest growing churches in America, Kim and I wrote the business plans for 4 out of the top 10. Sun Valley Community Church, that's my friend Scott Rideout. Got Triumph Church, that's Solomon Clintock. Got Mission Church, that's Gary Norton. And Benji Kelly out at Hope Community. And I love bragging about my friends, because they are just doing phenomenal jobs. And a lot of people think, well, it's just numbers, right? But every number's got a soul behind it. So when I hear that Benji Kelly grew his church by 1,200 people last year, I see 1,200 people that were on their way to hell that are now on their way to heaven. And that's what we're all about. We do it, we're all in the same business, right? Turning irreligious people into fully devoted Christ followers. And I come alongside my ministry partners and just play a little bit of a different role. It's more facility-minded and strategic planning. But that's how we get our kicks. It's not AIA trophies or anything like that. It's how many people was that ministry able to affect as a result of us partnering. And that's been a lot of fun. This just shows some of the folks that we've worked with. I don't know how many, I think it was, last time I checked, it was a little over 50 of the churches that we've worked with have actually ended up on this list. And it's one of those things that, this list isn't all that important. In fact, out of the top 10, I should have had 5, except that Mike Lee at Hope Community Church didn't return their call. Because it doesn't matter to him to be on a list. He's more concerned about lost souls. But it would have been fun to have half of the top 10, so I'm going to give Mike a hard time about that. So anyway, when we started doing strategic planning, everything just took off. A lot of people I would ask about their plan, and they just thump the Bible. That's our plan right there. I said, okay, but how does that translate into daily activities? What are you going to do tomorrow as a result of that? And so if you want to have the greatest impact on the communities you serve, you really need to have a detailed plan. In Proverbs, it says, plans fail due to lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. And that's just an assumption that you have a plan. So I want to give you an example of a plan, and there's going to be an awful lot to cover here. It's going to be like feeding a hummingbird with a fire hose, so we're going to have to kind of whip through this pretty quick. But we'll go into more detail in the breakout session that follows this. So we start out with a plan. This is a plan that we worked with a friend of mine named Mark Cowart out at Church for All Nations in Colorado Springs. And to start, before we really get going here, can we all agree on this? The purpose of the church is to worship God, reach the lost, and develop Christ-like disciples. That's it. We can have all kinds of programs and things going on, but if you cut through everything that we do in the 50, 60 some hours that you all work every week, the bottom line, we're here to worship God, to reach the lost, and develop Christ-like disciples. So in the strategic plan, we start out with an entry, and let me tell you how we do this. When I started doing strategic planning, I had these really colorful binders made up. They're really pretty. We had all these tabs, and they looked like the color of the rainbow on them, and they got purpose statement, and mission, and core values, and goals, and objectives, and strategies, and action items, and KPIs, and we actually won. You ready for this? You're going to like this. We won first place in the National Binder Award. Is that impressive or what? Thank you. My graphic designer, her name was Karen Crump, Wild Hair Design calls me one day, and she goes, you won. And I said, won what? You won first place in the National Binder Competition. I said, I didn't know I was in the National Binder Competition. She goes, well, you won. You want to come down and get your trophy? And I said, okay. So I drive down there. There's this gorgeous glass trophy thing. I'm thinking, wow, that'll get me a job. So I asked Karen, I said, look, this is more prestigious for you. You're the one that did the layout and everything. I just told you what to do. Why don't you? So anyway, we don't do the binders anymore because what happened is we take these strategic plans, put them in this beautiful binder. I should have brought a copy. I really should have. But I'd give it to the pastors. They'd put it up on their shelf next to all the John Maxwell books. You would never see it again. collect dust forever. In fact, Kim and I were called typically about 5 years after we do the strategic planning by the pastor who says, Brad, I don't know what happened. We met all our big, hairy, audacious goals. We went from 300 to 1,200. We got everything we had planned in there is done, but we have plateaued and we can't grow. Can you come talk to us? So Kim and I would fly out, or we'd go on a retreat with him somewhere, and I'd bring a copy of the strategic plan, and I'd plop it down on the table, and half the staff goes, what's that? So, well, this is the strategic plan that we're running the ministry from. And they're going, we've never seen that. Because between 300 and 1,200, or 1,200 and 2,000, or 2,000 and 5,000, whatever it is, you're a completely different church. You've had staff that's gone off to do other things. You've hired new staff, but there's been a big transition. They'd never seen the strategic plan. Pastor'd go in, dust it off, pull it off the shelf, come in, oh, I remember the bigs, the big, incredible, God-sized goals. I remember this, I remember that. And I go, remember? You're supposed to be doing this, you know? So now what we do is we don't do the binder. I think I actually threw my last award-winning trophy binder in the trash not too long ago. We make a coffee table book. We use Apple to make these coffee table books for us, and we deliver hundreds to the church when we're done. Everybody on staff gets one, and everybody who's a key leader gets one. They teach their new members class out of this, and everybody in the church has access. We can't give them to everybody in the church because these little things are expensive, but we sell them in the bookstore. You know, we give them to everybody that tithes because they're paying anyway, but we try and get them in the hands of everybody so that they can actually have this book on their table at home. So when they're building friends with their neighbors and their friends and relatives and people that they work with, and these people come and they've got an issue in their life, maybe it's debt. You say, oh, our church has a class on this. It's called Financial Peace. And you can pick that book up and flip right over to it. Oh, look at this. But that way it stays right in front of you all the time. There's a story about Nordstrom. You remember J.C. Penney not too long ago was kind of circling the drain. They're going down. And they decided, the leadership there thought that we don't want J.C. Penney to die on our watch. So we're going to reinvent J.C. Penney. So they all decided that we'll go talk to Nordstrom, because Nordstrom is in a different category than Penney's. Okay, they're up with Macy's and, I don't know, Saks Fifth Avenue or whatever, but they're not competitors. Okay, so they go to Nordstrom in Seattle and say, we want to be like you. You know, what is it? The Nordstrom way is legendary. I mean, how do you do what you do? And so John Nordstrom in the conference room said, well, stay right here. I got a book that I should show you. And so he goes into his office and he comes back, and I know you all are thinking, it's the Bible, right? It's the Bible. No, it wasn't the Bible. He comes down, puts this leather-bound book on the table. He says, we at Nordstrom do everything that is in this book to the T. Guess who wrote that book? John Cash Penney. It's their original business plan. Shocking, isn't it? Go figure, right? So now we put ours in a nice, I'm sorry, it's not leather bound, but it's nice, right? And you keep it, and you follow that. And it keeps you from ministry drift. How many, you don't have to raise your hands unless you really want to, but how many, 10 years ago decided one day that you went to a seminar at, Saddleback, and you came back and said, we're going to be purpose-driven. Scrap everything. Put up the baseball diamond. We got first base, second base, third base, fourth base. We're purpose-driven. That is us, right? And you copied what Rick Warren did. And did it work? I tell you, probably not. Because right after that, you went to Willow Creek and you came back and said, scrap all that. We're seeker-friendly, or seeker-driven, or seeker-purposed, or seeker whatever you want to call it. And then you ride that wave for a while until the next one comes along, and then you listen to Larry Osborne, you come out, man, we are sticky around here. We are sticky church. But you go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. The thing that I found and what we've done to help our ministry partners is we get into their DNA and find out, look, you're not seeker-friendly. You're not purpose-driven. You're not sticky church. You are a unique creation created by God and put in this community at this time to reach the people that God's put in this community. So let's figure out what you are that nobody else is, and let's do that. And that's when these churches just blow through growth. We don't even know what growth barriers are because we never hit them. We just go from one to the next, to the next, to the next until we outgrow facilities and either start daughter churches or video venues or bigger facilities or whatever it is. So it really is about finding your unique DNA in what God has called you to do. Going out and copying somebody else. You are a unique masterpiece created in God's image. Why would you ever settle for a cheap copy of somebody else? Don't do it. Okay? So I'm going to go through a ton of slides here, and don't try and write this down because there's just too much. We'll do a breakout session after this, and we'll get into a little bit more detail. But I want to show you what goes into these strategic plans in order to show people this is who we are. This is what we do at our church. This is what our focus is. And when you look at other options as they come up, this is the lens that you look at it through. Okay, let's take just something like a Christian school. There's a lot of great Christian schools all over the country, and if God's called you to create a Christian school, God bless you. Okay, but God hasn't called every church to do that. So if the idea comes up that, we should create a Christian school, you need to look at it through this lens and say, does this empower us to better do what God's called us to do? And if it does, then you consider it. But if it doesn't, you 86 that idea like a virus. Because the enemy doesn't come in after you do a strategic plan and go, oh, scrap all that, let's do this. The enemy comes in with one good idea, and he moves you 1 degree at a time. Until several years later, you're not going that way, you're going this way, and you can't figure out why you're not growing anymore. It's 1 degree at a time. So there's a lot of detail in this, so I'm going to blaze through this pretty quick, but again, we'll go over more of this at the breakout session. So we do the introduction. We talk about a value proposition. Why should people even come to your church? What do you offer them? At Sun Valley Community Church out in Gilbert, Arizona, right on the sign out front, it says, irresistible, relevant life change. Is there anybody here that would not be interested in irresistible, relevant life change? Okay, Scott was just a puppy when I met him. He was a youth pastor at Sun Valley Community Church. We had 300 people meeting at Gilbert High School. Today they have over 5,000 people. They have 4 campuses, and Scott is now the president of Converge Worldwide. Because strategic planning and staying focused, right? Knowing exactly this is what we do. You go to Sun Valley, and they'll tell you, this is what we do. We offer people irresistible, relevant life change. And they got 5,000 people, those backups that work for me. We look at God's command. Real simple. It's right there in Matthew 18. We're going to go out and reach the lost, develop Christ-like disciples. That's the foundation for absolutely everything that we do. Our response to God's command. God says we're going to do this. What exactly is our response? Let's lay that out so that everybody understands that. What we believe. I love the Nicene Creed. Spells it right out. We believe in God the Father. We believe in Jesus Christ. We believe in the Holy Spirit. More detail written up there, but there's no question, when folks come to the church as to, what exactly do you believe? What's the guiding light? It's Matthew 28 and this. We spell it out for them. You can tell people, we believe in the Great Commission, right in Matthew 28. But if you just spell it out right there, then there's no question. If you're sitting at your house and you had your neighbor over because they were just diagnosed with cancer and they have no idea what to do, guide them through this book. Look, we don't have the answers. We don't know why your husband or your wife or your daughter has cancer, but we know somebody who does. You can sit there when the iron's hot. Because when people are diagnosed with that, the iron's hot. Yeah. The iron's hot when they move into your neighborhood and they don't know where to find a doctor or a drugstore or a dentist or a bank. The iron's hot when your neighbor's just had a baby and the baby's crying in the middle of the night. The problem we have too many times is people are over there trying to strike the iron when it's not hot. It just bounces off, and you wonder, and after you do that enough, you're just going to put the hammer away and say, well, I've tried. It doesn't work. Okay, but if you're tooled and equipped, and you know when the iron's hot, then you can make serious change. We put these charts up in the churches that we work with. Besides having the book, we take the overall ministry plan, make a nice pretty picture out of it, blow that up to a big old poster, and we mount it in the conference room of the church. So that when the elders and the leaders get together and they're talking about this option or that option, or do we do this, or do we go left, or do we go right, they can look right at it. Say, well, where does it fit in up here? And we've had 10-to-1 votes where they're going to do some type of program, or they're going to do whatever it is they're going to do. And the one vote said, I don't think we should do it. First off, 10-1 vote takes some courage, because you got 10 other elders saying yes, and you got one person saying no. In this case, it happened to be the youth pastor that said, I don't think we should do that. And everybody's just kind of, yeah, well, that's why you're the youth pastor. But he pointed to this chart and he says, you guys have been sitting here talking about it for 20 minutes, and my eyes are going around and around on this chart, and I just don't see where it fits in. And they all took their attention right back to, this is what we do. And it turned out that after a little bit more discussion, it was 11-0 vote to not do it, because one person kept their eye on the ball and brought it to the attention that, could this be the 1 degree that the enemy's wanting to move us? And as it turned out, they agreed that it was. So having this in the conference room, having it, we have front room, back room things, right? Front room is what the whole congregation sees on a regular basis. Okay, if we had a strategy here, like a 5-step discipleship strategy of hatch them, catch them, patch them, match them, and dispatch them. Okay? We're going to catch lost people because they matter to God. We're going to hatch them in a new relationship with Jesus Christ. We're going to patch their broken up, messed up lives. Catch them, catch them, patch them. We're going to match them with their spiritual gifts, and we're going to dispatch them back in the world to catch more lost people. Okay, that's it's impressive that I memorized it, isn't it? But we would have banners, hanging up in here. Hatch them, catch them, patch them, match them, dispatch them. Win, grow, equip, and send. Discover, develop, deliver. Whatever it is, right? That's the front room stuff that everybody knows. Okay, the back room stuff is getting into a lot of the detail. Okay, this is back room. Okay, it's in the book. It's in the coffee table book. But we don't expect everybody to memorize all this. But we have it in front of us all the time, so we keep our eye on the ball and we go true north and we don't move 1 degree. Okay. 5-year strategic plan, just some of the elements that are in there. We're changing some of our verbiage. I mean, if our calling, for example, is our purpose. Okay, millennials don't like purpose, so fine, what do you want to call it? We'll call it our calling. Yep. It works, so purpose, mission, our task to accomplish, our dream, our core pillars, the things that we stand on that we would do even if the government outlawed. Okay, prayer, right? So of course, with Trump in there, we don't have to worry about it. With Obama, I was a little worried about that one. What else we got here? Core pillars, core values, 2020 vision. Where do we want to be in 2020? KPIs, key performance indicators. What does success look like? That's a good thing. I mean, if you're in business of making widgets, you ought to be able to tell me what a widget is, right? If we make fully devoted, sold out, reproducing Christ followers, what does that look like? Our priorities, our organization chart, leadership pipeline, tools for the journey. What do we do with world missions? All of that is worked out here. And then we have our tools for the journey, kind of our Batman utility belt. We got the dream strategy, we got right now media, we got life groups and team mentoring. So we're equipping our congregation to do what we're asking to do by giving them what I call our Batman utility belt. I love Batman. That dude had everything right here. Wouldn't that be cool if as Christians we just had a utility belt we could just wear around? You're hurting from this, got you covered. I need to sling up here, no problem. Somebody's going to invent that. Okay, so our calling, right? To experience God, connect people, and serve others for life made better. Okay, and that means a lot. And so what we do is we break it down. What does it mean? Well, here we go. There we go. Experience God. What does that mean? Connect people. What does that mean? Serve others. What does that mean? Life made better. Who's not interested in life made better? Okay, and you'll have to understand that Kim corrects my grammar all the time. You can't say life made better. That's bad grammar. Okay, not my church. They like life made better. It's life made better. Sorry, honey. But we define it, so it's not just something that looks good on a coffee cup, right? The reason we have a purpose statement is to keep you focused. Okay, the biggest disaster from purpose statements ever that I know of, there may be one that tops this. Well, let me ask you this. How many people here ever bought Kodak film? Raise your hand. Okay. Had a Kodak camera? Okay. You ready for Kodak's purpose statement? This is long, so you're going to want to pay attention. Okay? You ready? You ready? Preserve memories. Got it? Not too hard, right? Yeah, well, that's what they did. They're not in business anymore, except they make high-quality film for the film industry, and that's it. Yeah, it makes a lot of money. Yeah, but still, Kodak owned the world when I was a kid. It almost became a verb, like Kleenex or Google, Everybody knew Kodak. All right, Kodak didn't keep their focus on preserved memories. And there was a guy that came along. Anybody ever heard of Steve Sasson? He should be as famous as Steve Jobs. He invented digital photography. Okay, the first digital camera was the size of 2 shoeboxes side by side, about that big. And he created a digital camera. And Kodak heard about that and thought, oh my gosh, it doesn't need film. It would wipe out our entire film business. It would wipe out our entire developing business. Crush it, kill it, destroy it. Nobody can know about this. Okay? So we saw how many people use Kodak film when you all raised your hands. How many of y'all have a camera that has or a phone that's got a camera built into it? Everybody. There are more photos taken today, every single day, on an Apple iPhone than every other camera in the world combined. Okay? Here's the sad thing. See, Steve Sasson worked for Kodak when he invented digital photography. They owned it. They could have patented that, and every Apple, every Samsung, every phone in the world today should have a Kodak camera built in. But they don't, because Kodak forgot their unbelievably simple purpose statement, preserve memories. When Steve Sasson came and said, I've got a digital camera, they should have said, that's a better way to preserve memories because it doesn't need film, it doesn't need developing. Let's own that. And today they would own the world. But they don't. They are like 1% of what they used to be, making high-speed film for the film industry, because they didn't stay focused on their purpose statement. So if you want to know why do we have a purpose statement, that's why we have a purpose statement. Okay? Our mission, how do we go about doing what we're called to do? Difference between purpose and mission. Some churches say, this is our purpose statement, this is our mission statement. Okay? Think of the United States military. The military in the United States exists to protect the people, property, and interests of the United States of America, both here and abroad. That's a blanket statement, covers Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, reserves, everybody. Protect the United States of America. Okay? The people of the United States of America, both here and abroad. That's purpose. That should never change. Mission is an action in response to your purpose. How are you going to do that? Well, we're going to go find Saddam Hussein. We're going to oust him. We're going to find Osama bin Laden. We're going to beat the Japanese in the Pacific and the Nazis in Europe, and we're going to deal with what I call Pajama Man in North Korea. But mission changes all the time, right? I would love to be a dictator of a small country where I could walk around in my pajamas all day. I'd be a lot friendlier than him. But wouldn't that be cool? Anyway, so you got the difference between purpose and mission. Mission changes all the time. It's an action in response to your purpose. Okay, our task to accomplish. What exactly do we want to do? Church for All Nations will impact our community, our culture, and our world by connecting people to God in a warm, friendly, and dynamic environment where all people are valued, loved, and empowered to fulfill their life purpose. And then we break that down. What do you mean impact? And what do you mean connecting and dynamic? So we take these big statements and we break them down so everybody understands exactly what we mean. Our dream, what do we want to be, when we grow up as a church? So we've got, we dream of a church where people expect to encounter God in worship and wait with excited anticipation for the next opportunity to gather together. This is what we're striving for. Our non-negotiable pillars. Okay, this is what we do even if it's outlawed. The Bible, prayer, worship, relationship, stewardship, leadership, world missions, media. These do not change. Our core values, what's important around here. Okay, Kim and I fly Southwest pretty much exclusively. And every time I have to fly some other airline, I regret doing so. You get on Southwest, fun is a core value at Southwest that Herb Kelleher bled in the Southwest when he started that airline. He said in a conference one day, he said, you take the fun out of Southwest Airlines, I will shut this down in a New York minute and y'all can go work for United. The people at United are not having fun. I can tell you that. I can tell you that. You walk on the plane at Southwest Airlines, it's, hi, isn't it a beautiful day to fly? Come on in, sit anywhere. You know? You walk on in United, it's like, oh my gosh, don't hurt me. I want to get one of those shirts. I saw one at the airport. It said, Southwest Airlines, we beat the competition, not you. I got to get one of those. I'm going to walk up and down the United terminal and go, So core values are important. 2020 vision. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to end up somewhere else. Right? Where do you want to be? By the year 2020, Church for All Nations be a healthy, multi-site church with state-of-the-art facilities serving 3,500 people while working to fulfill the Great Commission. We're backing up from that. So what do we have to do today to hit that mark? Key performance indicators, KPIs. What do we measure? What do we look at? First-time guests. You know, people always count first-time guests. You know what's more important than first-time guests? Second-time guests. That'll tell you whether first-time guests are coming back or not, right? So what do you want to actually look at? This is your dashboard. Okay, when Kim and I are out flying, we got all these gauges in the cockpit that, you know, your altitude indicator and your HSI, and fuel's always a good thing to keep an eye on, you know, and that sort of thing. But you're always looking at your instruments to make sure everything's going just the way you need to. Oil pressure comes up, temp comes up, you got to throttle back and level off to cool that thing down. These are the gauges of your ministry, okay? And the thing that we try and do is don't focus on the numbers. You track the numbers because it'll tell you what's happening, but you don't focus dead on of how many attenders did we have, how many of this, how many of that. If you focus on health, the numbers take care of themselves every time, okay? But you got to be looking at something. What does success look like? Okay? We want to develop people that are reproducing Christ followers. How do we know if we're getting there? So we look into what does success look like? Our priorities. Okay, what is our primary focus? Majority of people who come to know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior do so because a friend or relative invited them to church or personally shared the gospel with them. One-on-one relationships represent the most efficient form of evangelism in our country today. That is our primary method of reaching people, is to empower, equip, and encourage our congregation to go out and build relationships with unchurched people, and we help them every possible way we can in that endeavor. That's the biggest return on investment, if you want to call it that. People bringing people. Thank God for evangelists. Thank God for people like Billy Graham and the millions of people that they reach. But collectively, we reach more people one-on-one. An org chart. Just how does the ministry operate? I don't know how many churches I've worked with, and you sit down and say, you guys have an org chart, and they go, what's that? I said, thank you, that answers my question. You know? But knowing just who reports to who and how does all of this work? And when you have a job like, let's take next generation over here, and here we've got middle school and high school, okay, and that's under student ministry. This org chart works for any church of any size. Now, the thing that gets changed is up here. Sometimes the elders are above the senior pastor. Sometimes that changes a little bit. This is broken down with an executive pastor and another one over here over different areas. So that changes a little bit. But what's helpful is if you're a smaller church and you have one person that's over all of children's ministry, okay, that person's name is in 6 boxes over there. Same person, because you're a smaller church. That person's job is to work themselves out of the job. Grow the ministry to where you bring in people under you. And that is a promotion. Okay, but if they don't understand this, let's say I've got junior high and high school and I'm working my tail off and I'm doing everything I possibly can. Scott comes to me one day and says, well, we're going to bring in Joe and Joe's going to take junior high and you're just going to be over high school. If I don't understand why and that is a promotion, that means I've done a good job, I'm going to, well, did you not think I was doing a good enough job? I'm busting my tail out here to life expectancy of a gnat. You know, and you know, trying to do all this stuff, and you just cut my job in half. But if you know from the org chart that, you know, the next step is that we're going to hire a senior high pastor, and I'm going to move over here. And then I get to oversee these guys. And then we're going to do more because we're bringing more and more people. That is a promotion. That's a good thing. Okay, and when you do an org chart like this, you have to roll it out in a, I don't like seeker-friendly phrases, but in a friendly way. We've had churches where we do the org chart and somebody comes and goes, what do you mean Joe's above me? I've been here longer than him. Well, you got to explain this is how it works, okay? And we've had pastors, usually younger, say, I'm not going to do that. I've been here longer than him. And you have to prayerfully discuss with him that this was not a suggestion. And sometimes people have to be released to further ministry somewhere else because they don't want to voluntarily adapt to this. Okay? Leadership development pipeline. This is fun. How are we going to go out and get to know lost people in our community? How are we going to build trust and relationships with them to where when the iron's hot, we can lead them to the Lord? How do we go about doing everything else that we want to do to turn into fully devoted Christ followers? What does that whole pipeline look like? The tools for the journey, I'll show you the pipeline in a second here. The tools for the journey, these are some of the things we have in our utility belt. The dream strategy, that's our hatch 'em, catch 'em, patch 'em, match 'em, dispatch 'em. Okay, draw. D, draw people into a relevant relationship. R, reach them with the good news of Christ. E, empower them with the life God intends. A, access their spiritual gifts. M, mobilize for ministry. Okay, what does all of that look like? Well, there, next slide. I didn't even have to memorize it. There it is. The dream strategy. And what's nice is that the dream strategy is not a program. Okay, put on your computer hats here, right? You got programs, you got operating systems, you got everything in here. The dream strategy is the operating system, not a program. Everything you do as Church for All Nations runs on that. Kim's given me that you're out of time, so we're gonna really fly. Okay, we look at draw. We break all of that down. How do we draw people into relevant relationships? How do we reach them with the good news of Christ? And who's in charge of that, by the way, because we have people to oversee each one of those. Empowering. Call that taking out the trash, cleaning up your life. Hurts, habits, hang-ups. You'll find financial peace and celebrate recovery in here. Accessing your spiritual gifts. Going through evaluations and personality profiles to find out how has God uniquely wired you? How does that fit in? What's God called you to do? And then how do you mobilize that? How do you take that, develop that, and go out and serve Christ by serving others within your congregation and your neighborhood? This is the chart, okay? This is up in the conference room next to the other chart. So we're looking up here at draw, reach, empower, access, mobilize. Who's our target? Non-Christian, new Christian, growing Christian, maturing Christian, Christian leader. What are the programs and ministries we have under each one of those categories, and how does all of that work? We have life groups. We have 3 different ones. We have the interest groups, fun with a purpose. That could be a motorcycle club. It could be all kinds of things that you connect with your neighbors with. It's to equip you to go out and build relationships. Then we have empowerment groups. That covers the R, E, and A. That's community with a purpose. And then we have mobilized groups, and that's life with a purpose. You can belong to all 3 groups at the same time. Okay? This talks a little bit more about the life groups. Right Now Media, you guys familiar with Right Now Media? Netflix for Christian ministry. It's unbelievable. You look at all those programs we had on that chart, and you go, oh, that's nice if you got a staff of 500 to run all that stuff. Okay, you don't need it. Kim and I just did one at our house. We invited, I forgot how many we invited, but we had 23 couples on the list. We had them at our house every Thursday night for 6 weeks doing Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. Absolute fun. We probably saved a number of marriages by going through this. We had one couple that has been in years and years and years of counseling, and at the end of 6 weeks ago, we stopped going to counseling. We learned everything that we need in our basement on Thursday night watching Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. Can you believe that? And Kim and I, you know what we had to go through all this training in order to do it. We had to order the DVD. But we had to know how to get it out of the case and into the DVD player. So we took a course on that, and then we have to be able to turn it on. That's our training. Okay, now we have several of the couples that went through that are ordering their own DVDs or using ours because they're starting theirs in their home, and they're going to have 10 couples in their home. And boy, if they could have 10 couples in their home and then 10 more after that, we'll cover all of Colorado Springs in a short time, laughing our way to a better marriage. And that's just one class of what we had up there. It's that easy to do. Okay, team mentoring. When you get all the way through and you're developing, reproducing Christ followers, you go back and you mentor people who are not as far on that spiritual development pipeline, and you help them go from one to the next. Okay, I'm seriously out of time. So world missions, cover that. Getting started. Last page in the book. Here's what you need to do to get started in this process. From there, I wanted to give credit kind of where credit's due. This just shows what the book looks like. I was going to bring a copy of it, but I always lend it out, and people always say, "Oh, I'll return it." And I'm, "Yeah, sure you will." Right? I couldn't find one, so I'll have to order some more. But that's what it looks like. When I did my, should that win an award? I think it's a trophy. It's bigger than the binder. Kim's doing this, so I got to. Okay. I wanted to give credit where credit's due. God led Kim and I in such an amazing journey as we've developed what we do. I mentioned earlier a friend helped me with my business plan when I had my company. The friend that's me right there back when I had dark hair. That's before my daughter started dating when I had dark hair. The guy that helped me with everything is this guy right there. His name is Steve Wozniak, and you might know him because he invented this, the Apple computer. And Steve was just a phenomenal guy. That's Steve and me and a bunch of our friends and kids at the Grand Canyon. And the reason I put that up there is when you look at ministry today, you need to take a cue from Apple. You need to look at what we call 10x innovation. Okay, I had all of this stuff on my desk when I started my company. All 12 items up there. I had a phone. That's for those of you that don't know, that's what a phone used to look like. Maps, Rolodex, all those things were all over my desk. We all had that, okay, unless you're like, I know you did. What's a Rolodex? Go to the Smithsonian, they got them under glass cages. Yeah. But innovation takes all 12 of those things off your desk and replaces it with this. Every one of them. And you can get it in 3 different sizes. This is the world we live in today. Okay? What's a Rolodex? Seriously. What is this stuff? We live in this world. As we look to have ministries that are effective in reaching the lost, we need that kind of innovation in our church. Okay? Apple doesn't take technology and say, what can we do with technology to make a phone better? They don't do that. Everybody else does. Apple doesn't. Apple looks at it and goes, what would be the coolest thing ever? Then let's develop the technology in order to make that possible. See the difference? We need to look at what does it take to have irresistible, relevant life change in our ministry, and what does it take to make that possible, and then go out and do that. Okay? So anyway, we're going to have a breakout session in a little bit, and I'm out of time, so I just want to thank everybody for coming and giving me the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you.